Where is the escalating grant of Sarawak? Financial rights of Sarawak in the form of escalating grant has been expressed in the sub-paragraph 7 of paragraph 24, Financial Provisions, of IGC report. Here it is expressed that, subject to the provisions for review made in sub-paragraph 9, below, in addition to the annual balancing grant, Sarawak should receive as of right revenue sufficient to meet the annual increase in the current costs of state services plus any sum required to offset any decrease in the state's revenue. During the first 10 years this would take the form of an escalating annual grant. The amount of this grant would be fixed in advance for each of the first 5 years and would be decided at the end of this period by an independent assessor as described in sub-paragraph 9. In recognition of the fact that the Sarawak state departments are still relatively undeveloped compared with their Malayan equivalents and because otherwise there would be no means of enabling them to develop to an acceptable level, the escalating annual grant together with the natural growth in state revenue and revenue assigned will, until the first independent review, assure an expansion of state services of not less than 10% per annum provided examination of expenditure over the period 1959 to 1962 shows a rate of expansion in such services of not less than that rate. If the average percentage growth over the period 1959 to 1962 proves to be less than 10% per annum, then the escalating annual grant shall be calculated so as to provide for a continued expansion at the same rate. The key points here is that 1. Sarawak has the financial rights in the form of escalating grant. 2. Escalating grant is payable to Sarawak by the federal government annually. Thus, the term, annual escalating grant. It was supposed to be presented in Malaysia annual budget. Every year. 3. The purpose of the annual escalating grant is to meet the annual revenue needed for an annual increase in the current costs of state services. 4. The purpose of the annual escalating grant is also to offset any decrease in the state's revenue. 5. Escalating grant provided to offset any decrease in the state's revenue means that the financial stability of Sarawak was guaranteed upon the formation of the Federation of Malaysia. Based on the framer intention leading to the formation of Malaysia, Sarawak was able to secure these financial rights in the form of annual escalating grant during the IGC negotiation in early December 1962. Where Sarawak was willing to accepted that taxes and tariffs must be federal matters, but had secured Malayan acceptance of a formula which should enable the state to meet its current expenditures and provide for steady growth in these. One of the terms is that Sarawak will receive annual escalating grant. Therefore, by rights, if the federal government failed to provide annual escalating grant to Sarawak, the rights on taxes and tariffs must be returned back to the state. Because Sarawak only willing to delegate such financial power, taxes and tariffs, to the federal government in return of annual escalating grant. Under Article 169(c) of the Federal Constitution, the federal government must honor and implement an international agreement, in this case IGC report, which was signed on the 27th of February 1963, before Malaysia Day. Therefore, paragraph 24(7) on annual escalating grant for Sarawak must be honor and implement by the federal government. Under paragraph 14 of the IGC report, it has been agreed that the requirements of the Borneo states, in this case, the annual escalating grant for Sarawak, could appropriately be met by undertakings or assurances to be given by the government of the Federation of Malaya rather than by constitutional provision. Under Article 8 of Malaysia Agreement 1963, the governments of the Federation of Malaya, North Borneo and Sarawak will take such legislative, executive or other action as may be required to implement the assurances, undertakings and recommendations contained in Chapter 3, paragraph 24(7), on annual escalating grant for Sarawak, of, and Annexes A and Beta, the report of the Intergovernmental Committee signed on the 27th of February 1963, insofar as they are not implemented by express provision of the Constitution of Malaysia. So, did Sarawak ever receive the annual escalating grant since 1963? Or, did our state government do not know the existence of the financial rights of Sarawak, under the annual escalating grant? Then, we have a big problem.